All right, so we are moving on to 10 doom metal albums you missed in 2023. Again, this is not a challenge to see what you might have missed or not. This is more me collecting things that are either underrated, overlooked, or worth a mention here at the end of the year as you look for things that might fill your niche needs. And 10 doom metal albums, this is going to lean a little bit towards stoner doom, unfortunately. Like, I do like a lot of stoner doom. It's not usually the most creative style or interesting in terms of its feeling, but there just isn't a lot of quality traditional doom metal coming out that meets a certain standard of the old ways in any sense. So we're going to lean into stuff that's interesting, and some of it will be traditional, some of it will be kind of out there. To start out, we're with something kind of out there. This is an Agalok feeling atmospheric black metal band, basically, but one that is more of a post metal band and one that incorporates doom metal into their style. So I thought this would be a weird choice just because it is actually doom metal in there, and it takes a while to get to that point. So if you're not a fan of post metal, you don't like the idea of atmospheric or post doom metal, this is maybe one to skip. But for me, this was a surprisingly good record and one that embodies this theme of ice here on its wares here. So we're checking out if you like the progressive side of Agalok later on that incorporate a little bit of a melodic doom metal feeling to it as well. So we have an old barbarian wrath band here coming back after many years with Black Wasteland's Time Devours All. And this is definitely a heavy rock inspired style of traditional doom metal, and one that I think will be more in line with folks who listen to a lot of the Maryland style classic stuff, or if you just like Born Too Late, from St. Vitus, you'll recognize what this band is all about. And for me, this has a bit enough heavy metal and heavy rock in parity with the doom metal and the slower pieces that it feels like a Black Wizard record or Saviors, if you will, if you can edge out some of the punk for just doom and traditional heavy metal. So beyond style, I think it's just a kind of a miserable, shambling record that has its own personality and an interesting art style that was compelling for my own taste. The Glass Garden is the fifth full-length album from Flesh of the Stars, and this Chicago, Illinois-based quintet have been around for a while. This is sort of a directional change for the band. I wouldn't say that it's so wildly drastic that you'll be thrown off, but I've always seen their style, or when I look back on some of their past releases, there was more of a post metal or a sludge metal feeling to a lot of them, which was more adjacent to doom. And this is more of a progressive metal album overall, and probably one that leans into progressive rock the same amount that a band like Elder or even Pallbearer has in the last several years. I think that they spend so much time on the build on some of these songs that I lose interest. And it's not that I'm restless or I just can't sit through it. It's that I didn't fully match up with the feeling of this record. It seems like it is very somber and has a lot to say, but the progressive side of it is pretty understated to the point where it just sometimes it feels a little bit like a Radiohead record to me, but not really, obviously. So this is not really going to be for the doom metal fan so much as the progressive metal fan looking for something more somber. Grave Disgrace is a St. Petersburg, Russia-based stoner doom metal band, and probably I think one of the more substantial or consistent bands over the last several years, who started out kind of in an Electric Wizard sort of sense and moved on from there, probably closer to something like Reverend Bizarre or Pilgrim nowadays. I mean, they're very straightforward, but that's really been kind of the bonus of their sound. The benefit of it is that it's straightforward, an easy listen, and an enjoyable repeat listen. That was the case in Rest in Peace. It is the case here with Visions of Tomorrow. This was kind of a go-to record for me throughout the second half of the year. If I wanted this style, I put on this record, and it just did a great job doing what it did. I won't say it's amazing, but it is exemplar, and I think it gets there in every aspect. So that's just a personal recommendation. Lost Season is the second full-length album from Sorcia, and this is a Seattle-based stoner doom metal band who have a huge amount of influence from grunge and grunge-era sludge metal, and you'll find that in that they're working with the fellow from Tad on their production in each case, but also you hear a bit of Acid Bath and Jerry Cantrell in the way that their vocals are now evolving on this second full-length. Their first record got interrupted by COVID, and now this second record is, I would say, thriving. It's not exactly traditional psychedelic doom. It's not exactly sludge metal. It's somewhere in between, and I like that in between because it's always tuneful. And this is a very memorable, immersive record with great vocals and great production values. It's kind of ready to be noticed. So I hope more people catch on with this band. Again, I split the heavy metal and the doom metal lists into two pieces, and a side effect of this is that I just picked up some random records to fill in some of the gap, and this was one of them in times of what was the second full-length album from Grief Collector, who were better known when their first record featured Rob Lowe of Solitude Aeternus. Solitude Aeternus has reformed in the last year, and that means that their style and everything sort of relies on this new vocalist, Julian Custer, who is certainly not as good, but is still a bit of a talent in his own aspect. He is probably more influenced by Dio-era Sabbath and that sound, and power metal and adult-oriented rock, AOR style things, and that leaves this epic doom metal style a little bit all over the place. A little bit generic. It's really a tough record to sit through to start, but once it becomes familiar, there are actually some pretty solid songs on here. I just couldn't I couldn't make the connection with this one.
Take the hand of the reaper so blindly. My satiated life no longer needs me here.
Another record that was sort of randomly selected, unfortunately, was Dismouth's Forest of This Sorrow. And this is a band not from Georgia the state, but Georgia the Republic. And this is a stoner sludge metal influenced kind of rock and bluesy, kind of blues rock sort of thing. This one is pretty interesting because it doesn't really... They've been at it for a while, and they've never really gotten their rhythms right. There's something very off, very early sludge metal in terms of its sort of fumbled through rhythms and run-on songs. There's a lot of heavy use of repetition here that is not tuneful and not enjoyable, but the songs they really do get right hit when they do, and I think the vocalist has an interesting range when they're sort of in the blues rock mode. So not really a traditional doom metal record, not really a sludge record, not really a stoner record, something in between, and hopefully they keep at it and figure out something that's a little bit more steady in its pacing. So we have a pandemic project here in Hibernaut. I assume that's how you say that. Ingress is their debut full-length album, and up front you'll hear Cathedral and High on Fire in their sound, but there is a drummer here who uses a double bass kick here, and that leaves it more of an earlier Mastodon movement to it. It does sound a little bit like death metal musicians making stoner doom, and part of that is that it's very aggressive in the beats, but it's also mixed in a way where it doesn't really have that much impact. So it's there's this is a record of excess. There's too much of it. I mean, this is a 75-minute record, and they just kind of go for it for every idea that they have. And there's some really great songs here. There's some just okay songs here, and the sludge stoner doom extremity of it is still pretty great. I just wish they would have cut it down a bit and not showed us every card here for this debut, because I think they're onto something with this sound, and if they keep it kind of extreme and keep that drumming going the way it is, but tweak the production values, pretty interesting band. You might remember I talked about Strange Horizons' previous record some time ago, and they've stuck with that pentagram feeling, sort of traditional heavy rock doom touch to it, more tuneful, a little bit more laid back, and enjoying a very simplified minimalist sound on this record. And we've lost some of the reverent bizarre feeling of their sound for the sake of what I would consider more psychedelic rock influence, a little bit of prog to it, and an ancient minimal feeling. And for me, it stinks of personality. I feel like they're growing more into who they are and less into what you'd expect. And I thought that was pretty cool once I sat with it. At first I really couldn't stand that album art, but once you get the personality of the band and the record, it does fit, and I like that they're kind of doing it themselves in most cases. El Regne is the latest full-length album from Udal, a Catalonian epic psychedelic doom metal duo. And what I mean is that this is an epic doom metal band with psychedelic doom metal influences. They are certainly from a stoner doom metal drift, but this record focuses on a more serious theme, and one that fits in more with an epic doom metal or epic heavy metal movement. And so it feels like a very serious, dramatic tone takes over this record, and it is really surprisingly good for a record released on 420. So definitely check this band out. This is going to be on my best of the year list, I think, because I've spent so much time with it. It's a really interesting idea, and I'd like to see where they go with it next.
Mountains